Hi, book club members. I'm Jen.
And I'm Carrie.
And this is Warhammer 40k Book Club, where we read from a crag. This is episode number 145, and our book is Interceptor City by Dan Abnett. It tells the long-awaited continuing adventures of Bree Jagdea with the Flying Circus 66. We posted several questions on our website, WH40kbookclub.com, and we encourage participation in our conversations via YouTube, our site, or Encrypted Vox channel. Spoiler warning, if you haven't yet read the book, definitely check it out before listening to this episode, as we'll be discussing the book from start to finish in great detail. With that, let's dive in. As always, Carrie, did you like the book?
Nope.
Oh man, just no across the board, huh?
No. Just no.
Oh, I liked it, but emphasis on liked. The parts that I liked, I loved. Like, I really loved a lot of this book and really enjoyed a lot of this book. But unfortunately, there was a lot of stuff that I really didn't like. And so it makes it kind of like, evens me out right at like a C plus B minus.
I liked the part where she played the world's greatest detective that was previously played by Christian Bale in The Dark Knight Rises.
That's fair. Yeah, I don't know. Let's get into this. What part stood out to you?
That. Honestly, what stood out to me was how formulaic this book was.
I can't argue with that.
There is so much foreshadowing that it punches you in the face from the get-go. Like the prologue, which has nothing to do with the price of eggs in China, just sets up the fact that we're going to have canopy issues and hydraulics button issues.
Kind of. So, okay, I have something to say about that. So it kind of set up, like, I actually understood that part. At first I was like, what? But then it did make sense that it set up the state that the flying circus is in. They are so stressed out. They are cutting so many corners. They are doing so many things you're not supposed to do that people are dying. Like, it's a hot ass mess on Interceptor 66. Like, I actually, when I read that, I was like, oh, okay, that kind of makes sense to me. But
Nah.
Chekhov's hydraulics light. It's not that I wanted her to run out of hydraulic fluid and, die. I didn't want that to happen to her, but Chekhov's hydraulics bulb, like the amount of time they spent, like, oh yeah, it doesn't work. Oh yeah, it doesn't work. Oh, it doesn't work. Oh, hey, I changed the bulb. And I was like, ooh. Oh. She got a bulb? I guess that's good. Like, I guess that's good. She got a bulb. I'm so happy for her. I love it for her. Didn't really, like, that whole thing, to your point, like, that was foreshadowing that I was like, and it's gone.
Yeah.
That part I didn't mind.
Well, like, I'm going to formulaic, like, oh my God. So, she's talking to Kaminsky and she's talking about how flying the Voss, how hard it is and it's so awful. You have to be really good to do it. And she doesn't like it and blah, blah, blah. Well, guess what she gets to fly from now on? The Voss. Like, Jesus H. Christmas. Dan Abnett. Did you forget how to be subtle?
That was, okay, look, and you and I kind of talked about this. Like, I think narratively, we probably could have shaved off about 75 pages from this book, at least. And a big part of it was, like, she could have made a delivery run to Intercept 66, could have had Kaminsky there, maybe didn't have Kaminsky there. I don't really care, and I'll get more into that in a second. I think everyone knows Kaminsky's, like, one of my favorite characters from Double Eagle. She could have just gotten there and been like, look, I'm a cargo pilot. And they could have been like, we understand, but we also need pilots, and we low-key know who you are. And then she could have had her thing about, the Voss is a terrible ship. I don't like this plane. It's not going to work for me. And it's the wrong plane for this particular theater. Yeah, we know. Come on in there. I absolutely agree with you when she was just like, "Oh my God, the Voss is so terrible." I was like, "Yeah, but you're gonna end up flying it by the middle of this book." So,
Mm-hmm.
and then when is it Gannett? When the initial lead, when he's just like, "Yeah, I need you guys to fly." I was like, "Yep, we knew this was coming.
Oh
We
yeah.
knew we could have gotten here so much quicker. We could have gotten you and Gum in your pilots in your planes so much quicker."
Well, like with Wilzar, running out of fuel, we could have had him kind of crash at Intercept 66 instead of
Yeah,
doing
very much so.
detour. What? Why though? Nothing even happened there. There was like literally no point to that, aside from her
No,
telling him to be better. She could have told him that on Intercept 66.
she absolutely could have had that conversation there. I absolutely agree. I will say though, having said that, one of the things that did stand out to me, I really enjoy a good code name, and like Dollface for Gum. That's fantastic. Wilzar's Smoke. Mm. Gangster's really fun for the Vergast. Ganger, which if you read the Gaunt's Ghost books, you're like, hey, Vergast, I know what this all means. Um, if it's more of like and it's not like you missed something if you didn't read the Gaunt's Ghost books. It was more like you know what I'm talking about. Which I was like, yeah, that's kind of nice. I really liked. I loved Mary Death for for Meredith the sister. I love a good call name.
That was
So,
the only one I liked.
oh, I loved Dollface. I thought Dollface was but I also just really liked that character. So, but Mary Death. I also did like one of the things that's always very. This is the part that stood out to me is one of the things that's always very strange about the Sabbat worlds is how much they revere Saint Sabbat and how Saint Sabbat. Okay, I'm gonna say this and I'm gonna get into some weird territory here, but she's almost akin to like the Virgin Mary in the level of worship she has, akin to like the God Emperor. Like the God Emperor is definitely here, but like like she's occupying
Hmm.
this weird space. And so I really did like when Mary Death kind of gives you an insight into her zealotry when she's just like, you've been touched by the saint. I've never met the saint. Ah, but you were with Gaunt, and Gaunt brought back the saint. Yeah, but Gaunt years before he met the saint. Yes, but like, oh, oh, oh. This is like people who see Jesus in toast. I thought that was fun for her, but it was very on brand for her character too. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, you're crazy. That tracks. Oh man, nothing stood out to you.
No.
Man, you're killing me, Smalls.
No.
All right. Bree Jagdea is back. Does she still have it? Is she still a good leader? Do you like her as a character?
I thought she was a good leader until she decided that she could be the world's greatest detective.
And just walk over and ask people if they were the White Crow?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, and I did appreciate when Dan Fair was like, that's not how you run an investigation, but you can get some really candid answers from people. Yeah, but you also believed the bad guy when he told you he wasn't the bad guy. So
Right.
maybe those candid answers weren't so candid. Um, oh man, I agree with you on the detective part. I really do.
I did think of something that stood out to me. The whole
Hmm.
concept of the wet pilots disturbed me greatly, but it's so Warhammer 40k.
Oh,
And it's mainly
so
just,
Warhammer
I
40K.
just felt so bad for them.
Oh, I felt.
And she's
Oh
like,
man.
you have to flush the toxins like every other day. They're like, well, we can't. It's just how it is. Like, sure.
So you took someone who's tethered to their plane, already has probably not a great quality of life, and then you dramatically lowered it. I mean, I understand needs must, necessity. There's a war on. I understand that,
Omelet,
but
eggs.
yeah. But I'm with you when they said that they were not like flushing it regularly. I was like, A, those people have to stink so bad. But also
Well,
in
they couldn't, couldn't wash. They couldn't go eat with people. They had to sleep with their plane because they couldn't be unhooked because they couldn't wash the toxin. It's like, oh my God.
the Warhammer 40k universe is not for the weak of heart. It reminded me take a drink because I'm going to mention the Night Lord's omnibus. It reminded me when they find that that navigator who's been
Oh,
sitting like in her
and her fluids.
yeah, in her fluids that hadn't been cleaned.
Yeah.
They talk about that sometimes with like some of the heretic titans too, how their princeps like probably haven't been cleaned in forever. Just so gross. So gross. Yeah, I'm with you on that. That was one of those things where I was like, damn, just when you think the Warhammer 40k universe doesn't get a little more metal.
Right? We're just going to have people like surgically attached to their planes, like more so than we have like, shipmasters sometimes that they're attached to their thrones. But at least like they can actually eventually unhook, it's cool. These guys like, no, like we survive on amniotic fluid between me and the plane. That's not right. That's so not right.
It's so not right. And for some reason, like the name is super descriptive, but also that's not a good thing. The wet pilots.
That's better than calling them the moist pilots.
Okay, that's true. But wet pilot, you're just like, oh no. I will say really quickly, I was a little worried. Like, I loved when Bree basically commits herself to the saint and is like, please, like, I will do literally anything if you let me save this. And that was so cinematic when the Saint Sabbath plane comes up and she's like, oh my God. I was a little worried that they were going to make her a wet pilot. I was a little worried that she was going to be like, okay, fine. I am just going to go full throttle, full dedication to the throne. Make me a wet pilot. No, she's still going to be a pilot, but she doesn't have to have that level of commitment.
I don't think they were in any position to make wet pilots, though.
Oh, that's probably true. That probably would have opened up some questions, but
that's probably a Mechanicus
that's where she's going to go.
Abomination.
It is 100% a Mechanicus creation. Like, oh, I have a really good idea. What if?
You know how we do that with like the Titans, and the Dreadnoughts? Why not? Like, hear me out. What if?
Bear with me. I feel like somebody did a line of coke and was like, okay, here's what we're gonna do. Ooh. Yeah, wet pilots. Yeah, that was pretty gross. But I was really glad that she didn't become one in the end. I liked. These are some of the parts where the book started to really stand out to me. It was with Bree, where she really starts to fall back into that leadership, where she's like, okay, I have figured out a couple of things. I don't really like with the J turn when she's like, I don't really know how I did it. And then she kind of figures it out and is like, oh my gosh, which is fun. But I like that she starts holding these classes like, okay, let's try to get better. She's trying to demonstrate leadership capabilities of this place is nuts and nobody cares. Everything's dangerous and we need to learn. And I liked how her little classes just kind of kept growing and growing because people are like, I would also like to learn how to do this.
I think that was because who she was suddenly got out.
Yeah. I did like when they were like, oh, by the way, you know that's taught in school, right? And she's, shut up. That would be a little weird to discover that you were taught in school. What did you make of the 66 Flying Circus in general?
I mean, it's a circus. Like, I don't know how else to put it. It's just, it was a mess. There was not many people there that were likable. Like, I didn't like lead. I didn't like exec. I didn't like Dampier. Mary Death was a little too much for me. Probably the only ones I liked was like Gangster and Camo and Gum. That was it.
Yeah, I would agree with, I liked Gangster. I actually didn't like Camo, but more on that in a minute. I didn't really like her that much, but I actually liked Exec. And the one scene with Exec that I really liked, and this was another thing that really helped Bree stand out as a leader, right, is when he comes back and he's shaken, right? He's super upset and he's all like, oh my God, oh my God. And she tells him, she's like, yeah, he was a horrible pilot. And he gets really angry, and she's like, now you can get out of your plane because now you're angry and you're not sad. Get out of your plane. And I like that at the end, he makes her his exec, right? Of like, Badler makes her his exec because he recognizes, okay,
that was
you and I have.
I saw that a mile away.
Oh, of course.
Like,
but I liked
again,
that for his.
no subtlety. Abnett.
No, but I liked for his character.
I guess
He could at
considering
least say,
that he
"I don't
basically
like
made a
you."
big deal that he did not like her. And then she goes and accuses him of being the White Crow in her most unsubtle way imaginable.
How did that work out for you, Pumpkin?
I like that Gangster laughed at her.
That was good. Yes, that was a fun one. I liked them. I liked Mary Death. I liked that she was very much that her character, if that makes sense. Like she was a very staunchly religious person. She had no real room for like warmth or softness. I liked her reaction. I actually did enjoy her reaction to being accused of like, excuse me, we kill sinners here. I like that she never stepped out of that, but she also wasn't like the slashing wrists. I am not worthy.
Right.
Oh, no. I got the impression Mary Death knew she was worthy.
Yes. She has a purpose and she's very good at it. And she, she knows it. She knows what she's here to do and is ready to do it in the name of the Emperor.
Again, the sisters are just better bridesmaids. They're always good little side characters.
That's true.
I liked her. I did like her. Shoot, that might be everybody that I really liked. Because yeah, you're not wrong. A lot of them weren't likable, but a lot of them were also strung out, and I didn't like. I understood Dampere. I understood how she felt and like the way she looked at things, but I also was like, everything is a shit show around you. And you're kind of just choosing what you ignore and don't.
Yeah, that was my problem with her. So she reminded me of, I had to go to a summit for work where basically they were bringing all of us on this part of the company together to be in person, to not be remote. And they made us do a whole bunch of what you would do on a retreat, not a business conference. We built Legos and drew pictures, and I'm not even kidding. But the people...
It still blows my mind.
The people who did not participate in this were the leaders. So they're like, isn't this so awesome? I'm like, yeah, because you guys aren't doing this crap here with us. Right. That's how I thought of Dampere. You are just oblivious to all of it, and you're not participating in any of it. Because I'm a deck officer.
That's fair.
I'm not a pilot. Yeah, you're going to do things this way. Oh, I don't have to answer for that because I'm not a pilot. I'm the deck officer. Okay.
That's true, actually. I will have to agree with you on that. That was very much, and I understand because she's a deck officer, but she definitely had that
but a know-it-all.
She came off as very aloof.
Yeah, I mean, aloof and giving orders for stuff that she didn't know she wasn't participating in. So I like the fact, what was his name? Garrett.
Mm-hmm.
Lead. I'll just call him Lead because that's how I got new.
OG Lead, yes.
Yeah, Lead. So when the fact that Lead actually was in the weeds with them, I was like, I can tolerate you because you actually know what you're talking about because you're part of this. You know this is a hot mess. You know this is awful. And you know what you need to do to have things run smoothly. She just was like, I'm the officer. I'm behind the desk. And I'm going to put out these orders even though I'm not part of any of it. Okay.
I was really pissed when Lead died, by the way. Really pissed because I really liked his character.
Yeah, I was angry that he died. And then I got even angrier at Exec when she kept saying, we had a deal. He's like, well, he's dead. But I have this. Yeah, well, he's not here. can you guys take a minute here and realize how much of an asshole you sound like right now? And I know, and that's just kind of who he was. Yes, he was young. He was put into the point of leading too off, too early. So we saw that with the scene that you mentioned. But then when he gets any of that power, he's just a dick.
Kind of. I think what it, to me, the way that I actually liked that scene, and I'll tell you why, is that when when Lead sort of hectors her into staying, and she's just like
Blackmails her.
Yeah, and he's like, "Are you mad at me?" And she's like, "Yes, but I would do the same in your situation because I would recognize the resource." And we even kind of saw her do that in Double Eagle, right? Now she made it more of like, "Hey, friend, do you want to fly again?" But she didn't have to coerce any of those pilots, right? Because they all wanted to get back in the air. So I liked when she was like, I would use that. And it was a more subtle technique, right? Rather than just being like, do it. He kind of gave her the illusion of choice, but also kind of not.
Right.
And she does say, she's like, yeah, that's kind of what I would have done. So I liked that Badler was a nice juxtaposition of Badler being like, nope, I don't care. There's no subtlety. No subtlety, no bedside manner, as it were. He's just like, you're a resource and I'm keeping the resource. So I think you get to see that other side of, I'm not as friendly. I don't have the warmth that I don't have the people skills that OG Lead had. Nope, you're a resource. We're keeping you. Dude, you could at least make me feel better about this, right? You could at least buy me dinner first.
Right.
Just say. I think, like, okay, let's say there was a next book. I think Badler will be a really cool character in the next book. This one, we don't really get to see any like real like, oh, okay, until the end when he makes her his exec. Which, yes, you could see it coming, but it also was, I was a little worried she was going to end up leading the circus. Like I was worried Badler was going to die and then she was going to be lead again.
That would have been too much. That
would have been way too much.
If he died, I'm like, oh, okay.
Right. Again, we could have cut out this entire book and you just could have made her the lead of Flying Circus and given us a reason why she's there. And it would have been fine. What about, so this book, as with Double Eagle, this book is like people stuff over here and then aerial combat stuff over here, right? The Top Gun scenes, if you will. Did you like it? Was it gripping? Was it fun?
I guess. It's hard. Like, I just didn't really enjoy it. And I've enjoyed air combat and other stuff before. Just with this, I guess because it felt like everything was... This is like a video game. We start off with a tutorial. And then and so we're doing this and we learned this one thing. Oh, so now you have to do this one thing to defeat the mini boss. Well, now you got more mini bosses. And now you have to do this again like multiple times. And now you have to do this, oh my gosh, so many more times. And then your friends are dying. It's like... Okay, we're just going to keep piling this on, make it, just add in. Well, now there's not 2 bats. See, we've graduated. We're now halfway through the game. There's like 6 bats. And then you get to the final boss.
They've changed tactics on us.
Then you get to the final boss where they all just come because they find the nest. Okay, sure.
Well, they find a nest.
What? Yeah.
I actually, you know what? There's another part that stood out to me. I like that he didn't just end the war at the end of this book like he did with Double Eagle, because that was so like, and then everybody lived a happy ever after.
Yeah,
and the Krogan baked you a cake.
Okay, yes,
I like that in this book.
I will give it that they're like, well, we now know what we need to do. We found a nest. We know how we need to work with, the other interceptors and how we're going to handle this. But the war goes on. Kind of like oh my gosh, Full Metal Jacket, right? How that ended. The war goes on, people. It's not over.
It is not over.
So
and what happened here is not anything that's going to end the war.
No, I will give it that. That is one concession I will give this book. At least he ended it. And not in a drop the mic, it's all done. Like you said, the Krogan baked you a cake.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was no
the Reapers turned into ice cream.
Yeah. That didn't happen in this one. No, I really did. I did appreciate that. I appreciated that he's like, okay, all right, we took care of the White Crow. Like the fact that the major war wasn't even really the point of this book, right? I did like the aerial combat. I like the idea of them being in this abandoned hive city because that sounds terrifying.
Yeah.
Um, this was the hopefully this will make sense because it makes sense in my brain, but this was like the airplane equivalent of a submarine movie. Everything's tight in close quarters and
Mm.
little tiny mistakes can kill you, right? Like this was very nerve-wracking. I really liked it. I liked the idea that this drink I liked that the chaos planes would be like, "Oh, hey, yeah, here's an abandoned hive. We can just roost here like bats pretty much. Like we can just roost here and launch bombing strikes and okay, so the Imperium says, "All right, we'll create a buffer
Right.
as it was to prevent you guys from getting through." But absolutely terrifying. It also touched on the and this is something that again Dan Abnett is starting to feel a little Stephen Kingy, which I'll talk more about in a second. But he's starting to feel a little Stephen Kingy with the whole because this is a constant a recurring theme. I don't want to say constant, but a recurring theme in the Gaunt's Ghost books of like, well, they requested the Voss, so that's what we're sending. Yeah, but the Voss is not the right plane for this particular theater. Yes, but you requested the Voss, so we're going to send the Voss. But it's not the right. But yes, but that's what was requested. Ah, okay, gotcha. The wheels are big and turn slow. It's the cruise ship, not the speedboat. Um, really liked the parts where they were actually just flying and fighting. Less enjoyed the parts where we were having to hear about all the tech specs of the plane.
I was actually getting really tired of all the pilot talk. If I had to read the word shred one more time, I was going to throw my book across the room.
Okay, let us discuss the shred really quickly because, okay, here's the thing. Pick a lane. Either the shred is an emotional concept, kind of like PTSD, that can weigh on you and feel like you okay, look, you're feeling the shred, man. It's the pressure. Like that part I liked. I liked the idea that, yep, we all have just agreed as pilots, we have agreed that like that tension, that nervousness, that is called the shred, right? That is the pressure of flying. The personification of the shred when it was an actual like it sat there smiling at her, smirking at her. Okay, no, stop it.
See, how I interpreted that as is because she is so on edge.
Oh yeah.
She's just imagining it like it's not an actual.
Oh no, I know that. Like I know
Oh,
it
okay.
wasn't actually there. But like it's either like a feeling. Like I want you to think of the last time you were really sad. Did you sit there and think about how your depression was lounging on your bed, smirking at you or sobbing in a corner? Very rarely do we like I did not like the personification of it lounging, of it smirking, of it hanging out, of it giggling, of it laughing. I didn't like any of that. The idea of it just being like a mental state, totally fine with that. Giving it anthropomorphic, no thank you.
Just I was just so tired of seeing the word.
Agreed. And then once we started talking about the white crow, I was like, mention a white crow again, please. Please mention a white crow again. Oh wait, we're dealing with a white crow? What?
Do you know why they're called white crows? Man, it's just like, man, did you know that she killed her husband?
Oh my God. I will agree with you there. Like the constant. In the shred pretty much gets abandoned when they're talking about the white crow. And then it comes back at the end again. It's like, it almost feels like, bear with me here for a second. It almost feels like this book was written. So like, if you ever look at the back of OG Stephen King books, he has the dates from when he wrote the book. And it usually would take him like 7 or 8 years to finish a manuscript, right? And you can kind of tell. Like when he was writing the book. I kind of feel like parts of this book were written at different times. Because the shred was like really the hotness in the first half of the book, and then the white crows become the hotness, and then the shred kind of picks itself in every now and then, but
I think this was another example of Dan Abnett had like too many ideas And like you said, because I mean, he has talked about before about how he wrote this one kind of introduction where he talked about when he's writing a book and he doesn't get through with it, it kind of stays on his couch like it's a guest waiting its turn. And I definitely can tell or feel that he did this several times with this book. And I think that when he does that, unfortunately for him, because I think he just pulls himself in so many different directions with everything that he writes, we have like, I think 2 book ideas almost kind of crammed into one.
It almost feels like 2 novellas that were crammed into one. Like, I feel like if you were to divide this book in half, there were probably 2 very interesting novellas in here. The aerial combat kind of strings them all together. And I will say, like, especially in those last few chapters, I was like, oh man, this is so good. This is so good. I'm really enjoying this. This is sparking that same like sensation that you had in Double Eagle, right? Loved it. It was great. But it did feel like, and maybe this was intentional, but it felt like when they weren't in aerial combat, it was like, pump the brakes and experience the shred.
Well,
Let's talk about
sometimes
the
the
White
shred
Crow.
was talking to her while she was flying. So, you know.
Okay, that was the other part. Like when it was talking to her, I'm like, no. I understand what you're doing. I understand that this is how she's feeling, and she's kind of, maybe going a little schizo. But just either it's a feeling or it's like her own personal demon. Like, pick a lane. It's a mental state or it's your own personal demon that you're dealing with. And I think either one would have been compelling, but I would like wasn't working for me.
It was too much. It was like
The fact that it gets mentioned every like page.
It's like, hey, Ayn Rand, I get it. Let's move on.
These people are strung out. I get it.
They're all under a lot of stress. They have high anxiety. They have, the heightened awareness and the heightened senses that comes with, under the pressure. And then they have the pressure. And then they have the stress and the anxiety, the hyperactivity that comes with it. Some of them are, on drugs. Yeah, I get it. I get it. It's okay.
It didn't need to be mentioned every single page. And at that point, it feels like padding the runtime. Did we mention? And again, I mention a lot that I I read violent militaristic science fiction and historical Western romance novels. Anyways, one of the hallmarks of of romance novels is authors will often, to pad the runtime, will like repeat phrases and words like ad nauseum, right? By the end of the book, you're just like, oh God, if I never read this phrase again.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me of that a little bit with especially with the shred. And then once we get into the White Crow, which let's talk about the White Crow, shall we?
So I feel like this book doesn't know what it's even supposed to be about. And that's my thing about the 2 novellas, because at the first it's like, she's thrust into this situation, and okay, that could have been one story, but now we're like, oh wait, where's a White Crow?
But wait.
Well, Jesus, man, like, why? That doesn't it really didn't add much to the story because the guy was a creeper to begin with.
Well, and I will say, so I think you're right. And here's where I think we have 2 novellas. And here's why I say that it felt a little glued together. And I'll say why is that. So you have 2 stories going on here, right? Like you have the flying circus, which they are in this horrible theater of being in an abandoned hive city. They're flying planes that are not meant for this type of tight, close quarters, right? They are short on supplies because they're also in the midst of a bunch of enemy bombers, right? Like, so, and discipline is breaking down. There's all this alcohol. There's all these stems because they're all on edge. They are all in the throes of the shred. Like, you have a leader and an exec and then Dampier who aren't necessarily really cut out for this, right? Like, you have a great pilot who maybe isn't a great leader, and then a potential great leader, but he's still too young. And so there's all of this stuff that you could have said, like, look, war is hell, okay? Like, look at all this dysfunction you have. Like, that right in there was an interesting novella to say, like, look at, this is what happens. Like, these people are basically frayed beyond their belief. They're taking shortcuts. People are dying. It's awful. That's one story. The other story is, well, things are terrible and the enemy is bad. And again, we got to see this because she even references the Gaunt's Ghost book with Vergast. We've already seen this from Abnett, which is things are bad and people are dying because the enemy is being so bad that some people are just living out their fantasies and their fetishes, right? We also kind of saw that in that Nick Kime, the Volpone Glory, right? With the Grey Host. We saw that a little bit where people start to, act out some of their bad tendencies. And so having both of these things together almost felt like gilding the lily. Like, everything's a mess and a cluster over here. Oh, and on top of that, we have a rogue pilot in here who's killing people just for the lulls. It felt like a lot. It felt like a lot. And it kind of came out of left field. Although, as soon as she was like, who's stalking all these people with all this alcohol? I turned to my husband, who read the book before I did. I turned to him and I was like, oh, Harlot's a traitor, isn't he? And he was just like, you have to read the damn book. Yeah, Harlot's a traitor. Like, how is he going to be a traitor? Like, the question then was, how is he going to be a traitor? Because again, I've read the Gaunt's Ghost books, little familiar with some of these concepts. And then when she mentions a white crow, I'm like, oh yeah, it's Harlot. So, and the other, just in case, like, when she confronts him, right, and he's just like, oh, I'm not I wouldn't have said that if I was the white crow. And she's like, oh, I super believe you right now. Camo, sitting on that chair, staring out into space, right? And like, you can tell that she's contemplating something because he spends a little too much time talking about her facial expression. Yeah, it's Harlot.
Honestly, I figured she was stoned.
Oh, I was like, no, she knows something. Like, she heard their conversation and she's been putting things together in her head.
Well, it was like, when she went and got the low sticks. And she was like, but what if a tally doesn't match? And she's like, what? And then she realized that, wait, she saw something when she got the low sticks.
Yeah, when she says that, I was like, yeah, no, we know that it's Harlot. We know.
The thing is, so when you told me, because I had texted you, I was like, wow, here I am, page 284, and I'm finally interested in this book. And it's because that's when the whole white crow thing gets introduced. I was like, oh, okay. And she's like, oh, but she's like, unfortunately, it's super obvious. And I was like, because I'm pretty sure it's Harlot, but she says it's super obvious. Maybe Harlot's too obvious. So I was like, could it be, exec or Mary Death? Because the whole scene with, you'll be spared. I'm like, what does that mean? Because you said it'd be obvious. Like, well, that's an obvious. So it was a matter of, this is all obvious. What's too obvious? And then I can't believe that it ended up being the way too obvious guy at the end.
Which she drops like 6 hints about, right? I will say there was a moment I got really upset. There was a moment where I was like, oh no, it's going to be Gum. Because Gum was my favorite character in this book and I just loved him and I thought he was a great character.
The only reason why I knew it wasn't Tim is because they talked about this has been happening for a while.
Okay. So, 2 things that I was like, and I stopped. I even paused because I was listening to the audio at this point, and I just paused it, just cooking dinner, and I paused it because I'm like, I was like, here would be something interesting. When he tells his story about Sagittarius Gum, he tells it in the third person, and they talk about how he has this porcelain face, right? So I was like, was he one of the pilots maybe who got, like, they thought he was dead, but he got fixed up and now he's back or something like that, right? Maybe he's been sneaking into here. I was like, there could be something. And the thing that I was like, it would actually be super clever for Abnett to make him be the White Crow. And the reason is because nobody looked at him. And Jagdea never even considers him. She considers everybody else on that intercept except for Gum. And Gum has been her friend the entire time, right? So I was like, that would break my heart, but it would also be very clever. But no, of course not. We're just going to go with Harlot. We're going to go with Harlot.
The guy
Because
who's
that's the...
never sleeps and apparently is on something 24/7 and gets everybody else on things 24/7.
Which, but then again, to that point, like if you're just going to kill, which I did, all right, look, I did snort a laugh when she opens the low case, which are smokes, and he's got the kill tally of the smokes that he's killing, and he keeps it in his smokes case.
Okay, I didn't even put that.
I
I didn't even put that together. That was pretty. That's clever. All right, I'll give him that.
I should say I was like, aye. That was, it's on the nose, but it's my brand of on the nose. So that was pretty good. But I I don't know, like why bother to keep everybody drunk and high and having a party if you're just killing people? Like it just, I don't know. Like, again, that felt like that would have been that would have made this portion, this side. I keep like gesturing because I have the two books now. There's a book over here and a book over here on my left hand and right hand. On the left hand side here, it would have made it a little bit interesting if you would have just had a guy who was like, you know what? I'm done. The shred got to me. I burned out, and now I just want to party. So I'm just going to keep everyone drunk and high, and I'm going to enjoy what little life we have left. Why bother with all of that other than you're a hedonist if you're gonna just kill people?
He's a harlot, so I mean, the sex, drugs, and rock and roll totally makes sense. I don't know why he had to go into killing people.
But he's talking about how he needs people to guard his six. Like, why are you getting them all strung out and high if you're so concerned about saving your own skin? Like, no, this doesn't make sense. I understand if you're killing the smokes for the lulz because you're a jerk. Got it. I'm cool with that. Which, by the way, when he started describing himself, because they talk about how he's very good looking, right? And he's a little rakish. I was like, oh, hey, Ron. And then sure enough, he's, oh, yes, I was a noble. I was like, yeah, Elam Ron. Gotcha. And he was like,
I'm guessing this is a Gaunt's Ghost reference.
It's a Gaunt's Ghost character. And so I was like, yes, Elam Ron. We see you. So again, it's more one of those like Abnett King things where I'm like, oh, you've got a type for your characters. I see that. I see it, and I guess I'm here for it. But the that whole like, there's why bother with the two again. There was probably two good stories here with that character being two separate characters.
Yeah.
One over here, you have the guy who's just contributing to the shit show, and then over here you have a murderer.
Yeah, because the story could have easily been like, she whips everybody into shape and they got a war to win. Okay. But then throwing in this traitor in the middle of it was like, okay, why? Why did you do that other than to add more to the runtime?
Right. I did the one line, and I think maybe like he had this great idea for a line and he was like, let's go with it. Was when she's talking with OG lead and she's like, there's a white crow, and he's like, white crows don't exist. And she goes, okay, fair. But why does the Navy have an official term for it if it doesn't exist? And he's just like, that's a good point. Like, again, this is the thing that we see, right? I don't know. The mystery was not all that compelling. I think I would have liked it again had it been separated out into something different. Maybe a different short story. Or maybe a different character entire. Maybe it was just the fact that it was Harlot that I didn't like. Just throwing that out. Is this a return to form for Abnett?
Okay, I'm actually really hating that phrase these days. Return to form. But
is this OG Abnett-esque?
I don't even know anymore. Like I said, like with Double Eagle, I'm like, man, maybe he was never that good of a writer. There was too many things, too many glaring things that just bugged me too much. And with some of those earlier stuff that I had read, I didn't see those kinds of things in there. And maybe that means I don't need to reread the Eisenhorn trilogy, because maybe that will totally maybe like, oh my God, he was always bad. But I'll still hold that some of his early stuff in the Horus Heresy was amazing. However, so I can't say if this is a return to form because I don't even know what his form is. Does he?
When I look at books like Saturnine and the trilogy that is The End and the Death, I have like it's definitely shorter than that. He didn't go too crazy. And when I think about like the that chick, you know, the one with the thing who does the stuff, Beckwin,
I was like,
that one.
there's a lot of them. You have to narrow this down.
You know, the book with the girl where she does the stuff, Beckwin, the Beckwin series, like is I think he is at his best when he's not futzing with the lore or trying to drop little lore bombs and right. So like with Beckwin, like the whole idea of the Yellow King in general, but then like the all these little pieces that he put in there of trying to change the lore and go back and like change some of his own character lore, right? Like I think he's better when he's just like, hey, I got a story and I'm gonna tell it start to finish, and you're like, hell yeah, this is good. But
I agree with that, but he meandered way too much in this.
he did, but not in a way like he meandered in a. It felt almost like, and I know that you've probably read books like this too. Again, romance novels are terrible about this, but like I did research. Let me tell you all about the pharmaceutical industry and make it seem like it's sort of loosely related to the plot of this romance novel. Like it felt like he was like, look, I've done a lot of thinking on aeronautical combat and I've done a lot of reading about actual dog fighting, right? And
I've
now I'm going to
interviewed
show it all off.
pilots. Let me interject all of their lingo and not explain what any of it means because if you know, you know.
I did, but so I think it's returned to form. I wouldn't say like this is not, although to that point, so you know, going back and rereading Double Eagle, I was like, still love it, still is amazing, but I was not. It wasn't as good as I remembered it being, right? So part of me is like, oh man, I don't think I could ever go back and read Only in Death and Traitor General because those are my two favorite Gaunt's Ghost books. Maybe they wouldn't have warmed up so well. It feels like maybe a return to form for like Ravener 1 era. Not we just one Ravener book, honestly. Maybe it's a return to that form. Maybe it's a return to form
You
to
know
like
what?
later Gaunt's
You know what?
Ghosts.
I'll allow it. So return form to Ravener because once again we have obvious traitors, and then when they do the traitor thing, everyone else is like, "What?
What?
The really weird, sketchy people like they betrayed us? Did not see that coming."
The guy who said that he would just kill the Smokes if he could is killing Smokes? What? Yeah. The guy who basically done told you that he was the killer and then was like, psych.
So okay,
No.
sure, it's a return to that form.
Yeah, it's not as bloated and ha ha ha, look how clever I am and I have spent way much too much time in the comic book industry. Like Saturnine and like End in the Death. Like I do feel like I was like, you know what? There's a hint here of the peak Gaunt's Ghost. I think I've always said that like for me the Gaunt's Ghost books kind of they come up here, then they kind of plateau and then they kind of go off at the end there, right? So they're kind of like a
Trapezoid.
mesa, I guess. Yeah, trapezoid was dope. But it felt like maybe somewhere like over on the like if the trapezoid like maybe over here-ish, I guess. I will say I kind of want more. Like if they came out and said that they were making a sequel to it, I'd be like, "Oh yeah, no, I'm here for more Jagdea, especially if she's with Gum, which she is now canonically in my head. Those two are a couple now. I
I'm
will
mad
not
that
be taking arguments.
she just ditched the other guy. Didn't even like send a message like, by the way, I'm staying here now. Hope you're not still waiting for me.
Oh, and I found somebody else now, by the way.
I don't know.
Yeah.
If there's a third book, I know that we'll have to read it, but I will die on the inside.
Oh, that makes me sad. I'd like more of it. I think, you know, one of the things that you and I have really pleasantly discovered is that a lot of these Imperial Guard books, and I know that this is Aeronautica and technically the Navy, but it's all kind of under that banner of non-Space Marines.
Right.
Really liking them. And I find like they're really nice candy bar popcorn books. And quite frankly, yeah, I would like to have some more. Although, to be frankly, I would like to have any new books.
Yeah, what's up with that Black Library? You like, they end loaded, they overloaded the end of 2024. Because, like, even when they came out with their awards, for Best Book, and they mentioned Interceptor City, I was like, what are you talking about? It just released. And then I remembered, oh, wait, they released the collector's edition
Yep.
in 2024. It's like, yes, but only 1,000 people got to read that, jagoffs. So, if that many people even bought one, but regardless, they overloaded it so much that we couldn't keep up. And now
Right.
here we are catching up in the new year with all of those old books, and there's not a new book to be found.
No. Well, I mean, technically, and God, at this rate, we're going to end up having to go into the Phil Kelly Cow books because that appears to be the only thing that they're publishing right now.
Nope, not doing it. We got so much in the backlog.
Fair. I did see that they're publishing a few more like old world stories, which okay, give some love to the fantasy folks. They deserve it, but also we need more books.
We do.
Just throwing that out there. And I really don't. So I used to complain a lot about the coming soon page because they updated it once a year, whether they needed to or not. But it was kind of nice to have an idea of like, oh, it looks like there are some things coming out. Like now I feel like I have zero insight into anything that's coming out in the future. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on that. But so that's a very long-winded way of saying that this is
well,
this
they
is why...
reprinted the book. So I mean, it's kind of new to us.
It is for sure. And then obviously Interceptor City is new to us, but that's true. This is a long way of saying that this is why you bastards out there won.
Yeah, you guys won because look at
you won.
Peter Fahavari.
We are going to read Peter Fahavari. We're going to start the Dark Coil Damnation cycle with Firecast. And look, I actually want people to know I'm going to go into this with a very open mind. Okay, they had me at a commissar.
So,
but
unlike Jen, I have actually read some of his short stories about the Angel's Penitent that were the Angel's Resplendent and Angel's Penitent that were very good. So I know he has good writing in him. So I will also do my best to keep an open mind with this.
Yes. And I think too, and look, here's the thing is that I'm actually really glad that I got the Dark Coil, because if we do like Firecast, I'm all for reading this thing cover to cover and as part of because I know that there's a bunch of loosely connected short stories in here. Let's read them, treat them as a book, whatever.
There's we
will read this
second novel in there.
Second novel. We will definitely read this because I want to be able to say that yes, I have read the Dark Coil series because it does come up in conversation a lot, on Reddit, and I have seen it quite a few times in our Discord of people mentioning it. So here we are. We're reading Peter Fahavari. It's all for you, Damien.
God, in this case, literally.
And then we'll have to go back to our way back. So send us some of your way back suggestions too, BT dubs, because we're here for them. As long as they're please no Phil Kelly Tao books. I just don't want to read about. I don't care about their caste system, which is ironic given that we're about to read a book called Firecast.
Well, I mean, so the
irony is not lost on me.
We got another Salamanders book. Could just finish that. We have another Yarick book. We have both of those. We only did one book in the Dark Angels 2 trilogies.
That is true, actually. Yes. I can't keep writing. We're gonna have to actually sit down and put out our list here and start having people vote in our Discord again on what we're reading, and on Twitter and on YouTube. Again, we're here for suggestions as well.
You know what? I may just keep that in the Discord just to make my life easier. Yeah. And that just kind of gives people more motivation to join our Discord.
That's true. Speaking of that, Carrie, do you want to take us out?
Do I ever?
And hype up our Discord?
yes, we are here to hype up our Discord. You guys, I'll figure out a way to get us to vote in our way back. I got told everybody, like, I don't know, 3 months ago, I was going to come up with some sort of way back spreadsheet, and then never did, because that's what I do. But for now, you have listened to the Warhammer 40k Book Club episode regarding Interceptor City by Dan Abnett. Be sure to join us next time for Firecast by Peter Fehervari. We are an unofficial book club and not affiliated with the Black Library or any of its affiliates. You can find both the vidcast and podcast on our website, WH40kbookclub.com. If you like this episode, like, subscribe, give a review, and all those wonderful things to the vidcast on YouTube, Spotify, or Rumble, or the podcast literally anywhere you get podcasts. And again, like I already said, come join our Discord. It's fun. People share what they're painting, although no one's shared in a while. You guys need to get on that, because I'm not going to step up. No, that's just not happening. But yeah, so it's generally a lot of fun in there. Our site also has articles about our adventures in reading other Warhammer 40k books and short stories outside of the book club books, so please stay a while and read from a crag. I actually have my I'm Alfarius mug today, so there we go. I'm Alfarius. Oh, there you go. Look
When
at that.
life gives you lemons, blood for the blood god. It's been one of those weeks, y'all, at work.
It really has, and not just work, just in general. So yes, when life gives you lemons, blood for the blood god.
Blood for the blood god.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.